I, 17F, have had a rowdy relationship with my stepmom, Kayla, 34F, ever since she started dating my dad, 42M, 3 years ago. To understand the full context, I need to go back a bit. My mom passed away when I was 8 due to breast cancer. It was a long, painful battle that took a toll on our entire family. I remember spending countless nights in hospital waiting rooms, watching my mom slowly fade away. When she finally passed, it felt like our world had shattered. In the aftermath of my mom's death, it was just me and my dad for a long time. We leaned on each other heavily during those first few years. Dad threw himself into his work as a way to cope, often working long hours at his construction company. But he always made sure to be there for me when it counted. He'd help me with homework, attend every school event, and even learn to braid my hair, though his attempts were pretty comical at first. As I entered my teen years, our bond only grew stronger. We developed little traditions, like Sunday morning pancake breakfasts and monthly movie marathons. Dad became not just my parent, but my best friend. He was the person I turned to for advice, the shoulder I cried on when I had my first heartbreak, and my biggest cheerleader when I decided to join the school debate team. When Kayla came into the picture, I was actually happy for my dad at first. He deserved to find love again, and I wanted him to be happy. They met at a friend's barbecue, and Dad was immediately smitten. He came home that night talking about how smart and funny Kayla was, how her laugh lit up the room. I hadn't seen him that excited about someone in years. The first few times I met Kayla, she seemed nice enough. She was always super sweet when my dad was around, asking about my hobbies and school life. She even brought me a thoughtful gift, a beautiful journal since I'd mentioned I liked to write. But I quickly noticed that her demeanor completely changed when it was just the two of us. The first incident happened about a month into their relationship. Dad had run to the store to grab some ingredients for dinner, leaving Kayla and me alone in the house. I tried to make conversation, asking her about her job as a real estate agent. She barely looked up from her phone, giving one-word answers until finally snapping, "Look, I'm only here for your dad. I don't need to be your friend." I was shocked into silence. After that, her two-faced behavior became more and more obvious. She'd put on a big show of being interested in my life whenever my dad was home. She'd ask about my grades, my friends, my extracurricular activities. But as soon as he left for work, she'd go right back to ignoring me or making snide comments under her breath. One particularly hurtful incident happened on my 16th birthday. Dad had planned a small party with some of my closest friends. Kayla insisted on baking the cake, acting all excited about it when Dad was around. But the morning of my birthday, I overheard her on the phone with a friend, complaining about how she had to waste her day catering to some brat's sweet 16. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I debated telling my dad about Kayla's behavior many times. There were nights I'd lie awake, drafting conversations in my head. But every time I came close to speaking up, I'd remember how happy Dad seemed. The way his eyes lit up when he talked about Kayla. How he'd started singing in the shower again. Something he hadn't done since Mom died. I didn't want to be the reason things didn't work out. So I kept my mouth shut and just tried to avoid Kayla as much as possible when my dad wasn't around. As the months went by, Kayla's presence in our lives grew. She started staying over more often, leaving her things around our house. Dad even started talking about her moving in permanently. The thought made my stomach churn, but I plastered on a smile and said I was fine with it. I told myself I could handle it for Dad's sake. Things came to a head last week, on the day of their wedding. Kayla had asked me to be a bridesmaid, which surprised me given how she really felt about me. But I agreed to do it for my dad's sake. I even helped with some of the wedding planning, offering suggestions for flowers and music. Kayla would act appreciative when Dad was around, but as soon as he left the room, she'd roll her eyes and change everything I'd suggested. The morning of the wedding, I was in the bridal suite helping the other bridesmaids get ready. Kayla pulled me aside about an hour before the ceremony was set to begin. I thought maybe she wanted help with her veil or something. Instead, she dropped a bombshell on me. Kayla told me that she actually didn't want me to be part of the wedding party or even attend the ceremony at all. I was confused at first, thinking maybe there had been some kind of misunderstanding. But then she spelled it out for me in cruel detail. A few months ago, I was in a car accident. I was driving home from debate team practice when another driver ran a red light and T-boned my car. I was lucky to survive, but I was left with some pretty significant scars on my face and arms. They're still quite noticeable as they're still healing. Kayla told me that my scars would ruin her wedding photos. She said she didn't want to look back at the pictures years from now and be reminded of how disfigured I looked. She actually used that word. Disfigured. She said she was only asking me to be a bridesmaid to make my dad happy, but now she realized it was a mistake. I was absolutely stunned. I knew Kayla didn't like me, but I never imagined she would stoop so low as to exclude me from my own father's wedding because of my appearance. Something in me just snapped in that moment. All the hurt and anger I'd been holding in for years came rushing to the surface. I thought about all the times I'd bitten my tongue, all the snide comments I'd let slide, all the fake smiles I'd plastered on for my dad's sake. And for what? So this woman could stand here on her wedding day and tell me I was too ugly to be in her presence? Without even thinking, I stormed out of the bridal suite. I could hear Kayla calling after me, probably realizing she'd gone too far. But I didn't stop. I ran through the venue, mascara streaking down my face, looking for my dad. I found him in a side room, adjusting his tie in the mirror. He turned when I burst in, his face immediately filling with concern. "Honey, what's wrong?" he asked, reaching for me. And then everything just came pouring out. I told him everything. How Kayla had been treating me behind his back for years, all the two-faced behavior, and now this final cruel act of trying to ban me from the wedding because of my scars. I was sobbing so hard I could barely get the words out, but once I started, I couldn't stop. My dad listened in shocked silence, his face growing darker with each revelation. When I finally finished, he pulled me into a tight hug. "I am so sorry," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I had no idea. God, I'm such an idiot. What happened next is a bit of a blur. My dad immediately called off the wedding, to the shock of the guests who had already started to arrive. He told Kayla to leave and not come back. There was a lot of yelling and crying, mostly from Kayla and her family. I just sat in a corner, feeling numb. In the aftermath, Kayla has been telling anyone who will listen that I'm a lying, manipulative brat who made up stories to ruin her big day because I was jealous. Some of her family and friends have been harassing me on social media, calling me horrible names. My dad is furious and threatening legal action if they don't stop. I know I probably should have spoken up about Kayla's behavior long before the wedding day, but I really thought I was doing the right thing by staying quiet and not causing problems. Now I feel guilty for blowing up their relationship at the last minute and causing all this drama. But at the same time, I'm relieved that my dad finally knows the truth. So, Reddit? AETA for exposing my stepmom and ruining her wedding to my dad? Should I have just sucked it up and let her exclude me from the ceremony? I'm really torn about whether I did the right thing or not. Update 1. It's been about 2 weeks since the wedding debacle, and to say it's been a roller coaster would be an understatement. First, I want to thank everyone for the supportive comments on my original post. Reading through them really helped me realize that I wasn't in the wrong for speaking up. My dad and I had a long, emotional talk a few days after everything went down. We sat out on our back porch, the same place where we used to have our heart-to-hearts when I was younger. Dad started by apologizing profusely for not noticing Kayla's behavior towards me and for putting me in a position where I felt I couldn't come to him. He looked so broken, so guilty. I hadn't seen him cry since Mom's funeral, but he broke down as he spoke. I was so caught up in my own happiness, in the idea of having a complete family again, that I completely missed what was happening right under my nose. He said, his voice cracking. "I failed you, sweetheart, and I will never forgive myself for that." I tried to tell him it wasn't his fault, that Kayla had fooled both of us with her act. But he shook his head, insisting that as my parent, he should have been more observant, more attuned to my feelings. He told me that I'm the most important person in his life and that he'd choose me over anyone else, no questions asked. It felt really good to hear that and helped ease a lot of the guilt I'd been feeling. We talked for hours, rehashing the past 3 years and all the incidents I'd kept bottled up. Dad listened intently, asking questions and expressing his shock and anger at some of Kayla's crueler actions. He was particularly upset about the incident on my 16th birthday, saying he remembered how quiet and withdrawn I'd been that day, but had chalked it up to typical teenage moodiness. As we talked, I felt like a weight was lifting off my shoulders. For so long, I'd been carrying around this secret burden, trying to protect my dad's happiness at the expense of my own. It was liberating to finally let it all out. Kayla, on the other hand, has been on an absolute rampage since the wedding. She's been posting nonstop on social media, twisting the story to make herself look like the victim. According to her posts, I am an evil, conniving little bitch who has been plotting to sabotage her relationship with my dad from day one. She claims I made up lies about her treatment of me because I was jealous and didn't want to share my dad's attention. The worst part is, she's been using photos of me from before and after my accident to mock my appearance. She posted side-by-side pictures with captions like, "No wonder she didn't want me to have a picture-perfect wedding," and "Would you want this monster in your family photos?" Seeing those posts was like a punch to the gut. I've struggled so much with my self-image since the accident, And Kayla's cruel words brought all those insecurities rushing back. My dad was livid when he found out about the posts. He immediately called Kayla and tore into her, threatening legal action if she didn't take everything down and stop harassing me. I've never heard him so angry. He was practically shaking with rage as he yelled into the phone. Kayla actually had the nerve to call me right after, screaming and cursing at me for tattling to my dad. She called me every name in the book, saying I'd ruined her life and that she'd make me pay. I hung up on her and blocked her number, my hands trembling. The online harassment from Kayla's friends and family has gotten worse too. I've been getting nasty messages and comments calling me all sorts of awful names. Some people have even been leaving negative reviews on my dad's business page, trying to tank his company's reputation. It's been really stressful for both of us. Things escalated even further when some of Kayla's cousins showed up at my school one day to confront me. They cornered me in the parking lot after debate practice, yelling and making a scene. Luckily, my debate coach saw what was happening and intervened before things could get physical. The principal ended up calling the police, and Kayla's cousins were escorted off school property. My dad ended up hiring a lawyer to send cease and desist letters to Kayla and anyone else who's been harassing me. He's also looking into getting a restraining order against Kayla. I'm really grateful that he's taking it so seriously and doing everything he can to protect me. Through all of this, I've been struggling with anxiety and having trouble sleeping. The constant online abuse and fear of Kayla or her family showing up somewhere has really taken a toll. I keep having nightmares about the wedding day, reliving that moment in the bridal suite over and over. My grades have started to slip, and I've been withdrawing from my friends. My dad suggested I talk to a counselor, which I'm considering. For now, I'm trying to stay off social media and surround myself with supportive friends and family. My debate team has been amazing, rallying around me and offering their support. They even organized a little self-care night for me, complete with face masks and cheesy movies. I know things will eventually blow over, but right now it still feels like I'm in the middle of a storm. I'm just trying to take it one day at a time and remind myself that I did the right thing by telling the truth, no matter how much Kayla tries to paint me as the villain. I just hope that someday soon, I can look in the mirror and not see the monster Kayla claims I am, but the strong, resilient person my dad assures me I've become. Update 2. It's been about a month and a half since my last update, and thankfully things have calmed down considerably. The cease and desist letters from our lawyer seem to do the trick. Kayla and her cronies have finally stopped harassing me online and in person. It's been such a relief to not have to constantly look over my shoulder or worry about what nasty comment I might see next. My dad and I decided to take a little vacation to decompress from all the drama. We spent a week at this beautiful lakeside cabin, just hiking, fishing, and enjoying nature. It was exactly what we both needed. The cabin was pretty rustic. No Wi-Fi or TV, just books and board games and each other's company. At first, I was worried about being so disconnected, but it ended up being incredibly refreshing. We fell into an easy routine. We'd wake up early, make a big breakfast together. Dad's pancakes are still unbeatable. And then head out for a hike or a fishing trip. In the evenings, we'd sit out on the dock, watching the sunset and talking about everything and nothing. One night, as we sat around the campfire roasting marshmallows, my dad opened up to me about his relationship with Kayla in a way he never had before. He admitted that there were red flags he'd ignored because he was so desperate to not be alone anymore. "After your mom died," he said, staring into the flames, "I was lost. For years, it was like I was just going through the motions of living. When I met Kayla, it felt like I was waking up again. I think I was so excited to feel something, anything, that I overlooked a lot of things I shouldn't have." He went on to share some incidents that had given him pause, times when Kayla had been rude to waitstaff or made dismissive comments about his friends. But he'd always rationalized it away, telling himself that nobody was perfect and that these were small prices to pay for happiness. "I felt guilty for being happy," he admitted. "Like I was betraying your mom's memory. I think that's part of why I clung so hard to the relationship with Kayla, even when things didn't feel quite right. I was trying to prove to myself that it was okay to move on." Hearing my dad be so vulnerable and honest was really powerful. I realized that in my own hurt and anger towards Kayla, I hadn't fully considered how complex the situation must have been for him. It didn't excuse his obliviousness to her treatment of me, but it helped me understand it a bit better. We also talked about my mom for the first time in years. Up until then, mentions of mom had been rare and usually tinged with sadness. But that night, Dad shared some stories about her that I'd never heard before. He told me about their first date, where mom had spilled wine all over herself, and Dad had given her his jacket to cover up the stain. He talked about how she used to sing off-key in the shower every morning, and how it drove him crazy, but he also loved it. As we talked, we pulled out some old photo albums we'd brought along. There were pictures I'd never seen before. Mom and Dad on their wedding day, Mom pregnant with me. The three of us in the hospital right after I was born. Looking at those photos, seeing how happy and full of life Mom was, I felt a connection to her that I hadn't in years. My dad got choked up as we looked through the albums. "Your mom would be so proud of the young woman you've become," he said, squeezing my hand. "She had such a strong sense of justice, just like you. She never would have put up with the way Kayla treated you." Those words meant the world to me. For so long, I'd felt disconnected from my mom's memory. Hearing my dad say that she would be proud of me helped bridge that gap a little. When we got back home from our trip, I was surprised to find a letter waiting for me. It was from Kayla's daughter Megan, 19F, who I'd only met a handful of times. In the letter, Megan apologized for not speaking up sooner about her mom's behavior. She said she'd witnessed how Kayla treated me behind my dad's back and felt awful for staying silent. Megan went on to share that Kayla had been similarly two-faced and manipulative throughout her own childhood. She described walking on eggshells around her mom's mood swings and never knowing which version of Kayla she'd get from day to day. Reading her words, I felt a mix of validation and sadness. Validation that I wasn't crazy or making things up, but sadness that Megan had to grow up with that toxicity. She shared a particularly painful memory from her 13th birthday. Kayla had promised to throw her a big party, but at the last minute decided she'd rather go on a weekend trip with her friends. She left Megan alone with a frozen pizza and didn't even call to say happy birthday. It was heartbreaking to read about the ways Kayla had let her own daughter down time and time again. The letter ended with Megan saying she was going to cut contact with her mom and focus on healing. She said she hoped that one day, when we've both had time to process everything, maybe we could grab coffee and talk. I'm not sure if I'm ready for that yet, but I appreciated her reaching out. Overall, I'm feeling much more at peace these days. The nightmare with Kayla is behind us, and I'm excited to move forward and focus on my senior year of high school. My dad and I are planning to start volunteering at the local animal shelter together, which I'm really looking forward to. It feels good to have a project we can work on together, something positive to focus on after all the negativity. I've also been thinking a lot about my future lately. Before all this happened, I was pretty set on going to the local state school, but now I'm considering applying to some out-of-state colleges. The idea of a fresh start somewhere new is appealing. My dad has been really supportive, helping me research schools and even talking about taking some college tours next spring. As for my scars, they're slowly but surely fading. I've been using the scar treatment cream my doctor recommended, and it seems to be helping. More importantly, I'm working on accepting them as part of who I am now. They're a reminder of what I've survived, both physically and emotionally. Life isn't perfect, but it's pretty good. I know there will probably be more challenges ahead, but I feel stronger and more prepared to face them. I'm grateful for my dad, for my true friends who stuck by me through all of this, and for the chance to start this new chapter of my life. Update 3. It's hard to believe it's been 6 months since the wedding fiasco. So much has changed, mostly for the better. I'm halfway through my senior year now and busy with college applications. My dad has been amazing, helping me research schools and work on my essays. We're planning a road trip over spring break to visit some of my top choices. I've been throwing myself into my schoolwork and extracurriculars. I'm captain of the debate team this year, and we just won our regional competition. It feels good to focus on something I'm passionate about and to see my hard work paying off. My grades have bounced back too, and I'm even in the running for valedictorian. I ran into Kayla at the grocery store last week, which was awkward to say the least. I was in the produce section, picking out apples, when I heard her voice behind me. My stomach immediately knotted up. I turned around and there she was, looking nothing like the polished, put-together woman I remembered. Kayla looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, messy hair, ratty clothes. For a split second, I almost felt bad for her. But then she opened her mouth and started spewing venom, calling me a homewrecker and saying I'd ruined her life. She was causing such a scene that the store manager had to come over and ask her to leave. I just walked away without engaging. Later, I found out from a mutual acquaintance that Kayla lost her job and has been drowning her sorrows in alcohol. Apparently, she's been bad-mouthing me and my dad all over town, but most people have stopped taking her seriously. It's sad, but I can't bring myself to feel too much sympathy given how she treated me. On a brighter note, I've stayed in touch with Kayla's daughter, Megan. We've gotten coffee a few times and even went to a concert together last month. It's been really nice to connect with someone who understands what it was like to deal with Kayla's toxic behavior. Megan's in therapy now and working through a lot of childhood trauma. I'm proud of her for taking steps to heal. Megan shared some more stories about growing up with Kayla that made my heart ache. Like how Kayla would often forget to pick Megan up from school, leaving her waiting for hours. Or how she'd make elaborate promises about family vacations or special outings, only to back out at the last minute. It's clear that Kayla's manipulative behavior wasn't just limited to her relationship with me and my dad. My dad started dating again recently, which was weird at first. But his new girlfriend, Lisa, seems really sweet and genuine. She makes an effort to connect with me and never tries to force a mother-daughter dynamic. It's refreshing after everything with Kayla. Lisa lost her husband to cancer a few years ago, so she and my dad bonded over their shared experiences of grief and single parenthood. The first time Lisa came over for dinner, I was really nervous, but she immediately put me at ease, complimenting my debate team trophies and asking genuine questions about my college plans. She even brought over some homemade cookies, remembering that my dad had mentioned I loved snickerdoodles. It was such a small gesture, but it meant a lot. As for me, I'm feeling stronger and more confident than ever. The scars from my accident have faded significantly. I actually did a photo shoot recently for a body positivity campaign at my school. Seeing those photos and how far I've come both physically and emotionally was really powerful. I've also started opening up more to my friends about everything that happened with Kayla. For a long time, I kept it all bottled up, not wanting to burden anyone. But I'm learning that it's okay to lean on people and ask for support when I need it. My friends have been incredibly understanding and supportive. Looking back on everything that happened with Kayla, I'm glad I found the courage to speak up when I did. It was hard and messy, but ultimately it led to so much positive change in my life. I'm excited to see what the future holds as I finish high school and move on to the next chapter. Whatever comes my way, I know I can handle it.